As Kat said, my name is Ron Hogan. I've been doing a website called Beatrice.com since 1995. And although it's gone through a number of different forms in that time, the message has basically remained the same, or the mission has basically remained the same. As it says in the tagline here, it is about introducing readers to writers. And basically, whether I've been interviewing them or talking to them, or just writing about them, it's been a way to take the books and the writers that I'm excited about and to share them with readers out there. And I want to talk a little bit about some ways that I've found to do that and hoping to do that in the future. And the project that I'm about to discuss, really, when I heard Craig Maud yesterday talking about subcompact publishing, it really resonated with a lot of what I have been trying to accomplish and what I've been thinking about with Beatrice over the last year or so. The idea that you could create something that is small and reasonably priced and on a fluid but reliable publication schedule, dead easy to use, and that is, as he said, predictable and reliable. I hope that what I'm about to discuss is something that lives up to that. It certainly tries to live up to that. So as I say, I started the website back in 1995, and it started when I first read about Netscape in Wired magazine, one of the first articles about the web and about browsers. And I saw it and I was like, oh, web pages. Web pages sound cool. I want to do a web page. And I was working at a bookstore at the time in Los Angeles called Dutton's Brentwood, which is unfortunately no longer with us, but it was a great store. And that sort of helped shape the form that Beatrice took, that over a few initial experiments, it eventually settled into a format where I was catching authors on their book tours, tape recording conversations with them, then transcribing those recordings and putting up Q&A formatted interviews on the web and doing a couple of those each month. I did that for a number of years around a variety of freelance jobs and staff jobs, working on Beatrice whenever I found the time. And around 2003, around the end of 2003, it got to the point where Beatrice was such a labor-intensive project that it was really starting to dig into my freelancing time and the time that was used to pay the bills and everything. And so I knew that I could not keep doing the kinds of interviews that I was doing at that time in that way. And that's when I first started to really sort of look at blog software and the blog model, and originally saw that as a way that it's like, I could just post a little bit every day and that would be fine, and it wouldn't interfere with everything else that I was doing. I think as anybody who has done a blog and gotten into it knows, that quickly sort of snowballed to actually take up even more time than what I was doing before. But the upside of that was that, because I was posting, 5 times a week rather than twice a month, all of a sudden I was getting a lot more people who were engaging with the site, who were coming to the site and learning about the books that I was talking about and talking to me about them as well. And that too went on for a number of years, during which I also worked on a publishing industry news blog called Gallicat. And when that ended, and after a period where I was working as an online marketing person for a publishing company, I started thinking about, what do I want Beatrice to do in the future? I mean, I had always kind of kept it up and running as a background process, as a blog. I mean, it was still there, it was getting irregularly updated, but I wanted to sort of return it to my home base. And the interviews that I had done originally were an area that I kind of wanted to get back to. I loved having those in-depth conversations with writers about their books and about the writing process, and also about the whole life, shaping your life around being a creative person. Those were some really great conversations, inspiring conversations, not just for me, but for people who were reading Beatrice as well. And so I wanted to do that, and then the question was, how am I actually going to, the reason that I left was because I wasn't making any money doing that, and how am I going to be able to, quote unquote, monetize that so that I can actually afford to do this awesome thing that I want to do. And that's when I started looking outside the idea of the website that Beatrice had been, and I'll show you, this is an example of what Beatrice looks like as a website. And I came up with an idea for a Kickstarter campaign where I was going to do an iPad version. It was originally conceived of as an app, and I called it Beatrice, an app full of author interviews. And I kept my Kickstarter bid low, and over the course of a month, we were able to meet the initial pledge goals, with about 115 people contributing a little over $4,500, which gave me the space to sort of clear out a month and a half, 2 months of my life to figure out, well, okay, how am I going to make this happen? The original app solution that I had, which was actually, was going to be next to nothing, fell through. So that, and then I was like, okay, well, let's research a new app solution, which quickly became cost prohibitive at the time. But one of the developers that I talked to gave me an idea about using iBook Author. And so I switched over to that, and that gave me an opportunity to merge everything together that I wanted to merge together in the iPad for the iBook store. I mean, there were definite trade-offs in terms of not having that audience captured directly through the app, and people being able to subscribe to new issues. But in terms of getting something out there, it worked out really well. And what the app, or I should say, what the iBook version of Beatrice is that now I record the interviews with a Flip HD camera, one of the last ones made, and I then take that recording and I go back and I transcribe the interviews again, and so I publish them as a print or a text Q&A transcript. But I also extract a 3 to 4 minute video segment from each of the interviews that I do, and then I bundle 3 of them together into a single issue of Beatrice. The example that I have up here that I did a mock-up for the original Kickstarter campaign was with 3 memoir writers, Darren Strauss, Deb Olin Unferth, and Alina Simone. And so they were sort of, those conversations were bundled together. They bounced off of each other and informed each other in interesting ways. The next issue that I did had Jodi Picoult as sort of like its anchor author, and then 2 debut novelists, Alice Albina and Nick Dybeck, to sort of build that around. And the idea for each issue was to have like that one author, that sort of like marquee name that people had heard of that would attract them to the issue. And then while I was getting them to the audience to hear about those authors, it would be like, oh, and here are 2 other people that I think are pretty cool. And the way that I had done it so far is that the original, the one that was mocked up in the Kickstarter campaign, as a condition of having met the Kickstarter campaign goals, I released that one for free. And this new issue, the Jodi Picoult issue, is available for $2.99 through the iBook store. You can Google or you can search for Ron Hogan or for Beatrice in iBook store, or you can find it off of the Beatrice.com website. And I'm moving forward with that model a little bit, but I'm also exploring some ideas where maybe instead of approaching the consumers for the monetized aspects of this, that maybe it could be an opportunity to go to the publishers and say, okay, who are the 2 to 3 authors this season that you're really interested in promoting, that you want to sort of break out, and would you be interested in sponsoring this issue? And in the process of doing that, I'm hoping to release some more issues for free in the months ahead to sort of establish a baseline audience of how many readers would be interested in, are interested in this kind of content, and then being able to tell publishers, well, here are the number of here are the number of readers that we can reach out to with this book, with this author, and 2 other authors as well, and organizing it around ideas of like, let's talk to memoir writers, or let's talk to some writers in Seattle or San Francisco or Boston or New York, or 3 mystery writers or 3 science fiction writers. There's a lot of great possibilities in terms of where I can take that. And as I was having the conversations around this project, I got a lot of really great insight, not just from the people who contributed to the Kickstarter campaign, but also people who were making their own suggestions as well. In fact, one person who is here today, Kirk Biglione, had a really great comment to me. He talked about the possibilities of responsive web design. And although it was something that I had not looked at for this particular project, I've been really impressed by, it's an area that I'm still learning a lot about and need to learn a lot more about, but the opportunity to do this kind of thing in a web-based platform is something that's really appealing to me, and I think that maybe a subsequent project might draw upon that. I've also since kind of recovered from the loss of not being able to do the app version right away by learning from the TED Books example, where they did they did it as ebooks for a long time, releasing those ebooks through the normal e-commerce channel, and it's only within the last 2 months or so that they sort of pulled all that together and came up with the app version, so that I know that I can go back to the app version if I want to, and that's another great possibility. And also as the possibility to integrate video and a book format extends beyond the iPads to the Nook and the Kindle, I would love to tap into those devices as well. But it all boils down, for me at least, to getting back to the original mission, that however I do this, whatever format I'm doing it in, it is boiling back down to a way for me to share the books and the writers that I am most passionate about, that I'm most excited about at a given moment, and introducing those authors and those books to an audience out there on the internet. And then whether they click through the links that are available at the back of each issue of Beatrice to find those books in the iBookstore, or whether they come to the website to learn more about the authors and then find them at another retailer. The important thing to me is that they're having the opportunity to learn about these authors and then to make a connection between the author and the reader there as well. And so whatever format that this takes moving forward, that's kind of the mission that I want to keep in mind and to continue to work hard on. And with that, I am actually kind of finished a little bit early, so I do have an opportunity for any questions that you might have to ask about this project. Okay, great. Well, I hope that what you've seen interests you, and if you want to check it out at Beatrice.com, that will give you links to the various projects, and it's as I say, it's also available on the things. And if you have any comments or suggestions, I can also be found at Ron Hogan on Twitter. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the conference.